Good morning, as everybody's coming in. Welcome to day 2 of our wonderful disability-owned convening. Going to give it just a couple of seconds for folks to get in the room, and then we will get started. And I say good morning, but I guess good morning or afternoon, depending on wherever you are in the country. All right, just a little bit of housekeeping to get us going this morning. So you are from idea to impact, how VR agencies support disability-owned businesses. That is our opening plenary, and I am Nikki Powis with National Disability Institute. If you are wanting to use captions, those can be accessed by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can also access the captions in both English or Spanish via stream text by clicking the link that is going to be appearing, if not already, in the chat box. ASL interpretation has been arranged. It will be at all sessions. We will have 2 interpreters who will alternate throughout the event. If you have any questions for the presenters during the session, please put them in the Q&A box. We've had a very busy chat box happening, and they tend to sort of get lost if you put them in the chat, and we really want to get to those questions. And we will get to as many as we can. So just remember, chat box for connecting and experiences, and Q&A box for questions that you may have. You can also use that Q&A box if you experience any technical difficulties, and you can also click on the live chat button in the menu bar and use the technical support chat room if you're unable to use the chat or the Q&A box. You can also email us at info@disabilitysmallbusiness.org. So that's info@disabilitysmallbusiness.org for assistance if the other methods aren't working for you. The slides for this session and all other sessions can be found by clicking on the session on the live events page of the website. Okay, so a couple more things to remind you before we get going with our wonderful panel this morning. Please don't forget to complete the brief feedback survey at the end of each session. Those are on that live events page that relate to the session you're in, and it says rate this session. We really love to hear from you and know what your thoughts are, and it's really helpful for the presenters as well to hear how their presentation went from your perspective. There is an overall feedback survey at the very end. So before you leave today, whether that's at the end of the day or you have to leave us a little sooner, please fill that out as well as an overall survey of the entire 2 days if you've been here. Also, after this session, we're going to be going into the concurrent sessions. You choose which one you want to join, and you can join only 2 minutes before the session. We will stop the sessions 10 minutes before the next session so that those ASL folks can get into the next session and everybody's ready to go, but you will not be able to join until 2 minutes. So don't stress if you are trying to join and you can't. If it's 2 minutes, you'll be able to join on that live events page. And while you're waiting for that, you can visit our exhibit booths, and you can do that at any time as time allows to get really good information and resources. And remember, the resources and all of these wonderful presentations are going to be available on the site until the end of the year. So you can just log back in and visit those booths and things at any time over the next 60 days. To get to the booths, you just click up on your menu bar into the exhibit hall, and there is just a wealth of information, including a lot of NDI resources, ABLE, Social Security, also our Verizon partnership with the Verizon Digital Ready booth is there, which gives you personalized learning, lots of coaching, peer mentoring, all completely free. And if you complete just 2 of their offerings, you're eligible to apply for a $10,000 grant. And side note, we just had somebody successfully get that $10,000 grant. So it's real, it's happening. So join Verizon Small Business Digital Ready and find the booth. You can also link to the survey at the Small Business Credit Survey at the virtual booth. We've worked really hard with the Federal Reserve to add questions about disability. so that we can really better identify the opportunities and challenges that's experienced by founders with disabilities. So your voice is really important. And, we want to elevate anywhere we can to get those voices heard. And through the Federal Reserve Small Business Credit Survey is a wonderful way to do that. The deadline to complete that is November 14th. So it's coming up pretty soon. And again, the link to that survey is there in their booth. You can also find out more about our sponsors by clicking on the sponsor button and then going into each logo. We also have some amazing resources that are available from the resources tab that you can download, including a comprehensive entrepreneurial guide to help you start, grow your business, which may answer some of the questions that you have today, and also a virtual accessibility guide. Okay, with all of that, I am delighted to welcome Ciara Ladroma. My voice is being crazy today. Known Ciara for years, so I don't know why I can't say her last name. Sorry, Ciara. Ladroma, Senior Associate, Griffin-Hammis Associates. She's going to be moderating this great information discussion about how state voc rehab agencies can support people with disabilities, including helping them launch their own businesses. Ciara does provide training and technical assistance around customized employment, supported employment, self-employment, and building social capital. Okay, Ciara, enough of me talking. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Hello and welcome to the opening session for day 2, where we will have empowering conversations about how teams have taken their ideas and have created significant impact towards supporting disability-owned businesses. So like Nikki said, my name is Ciara, Senior Associate with Griffin-Hammis Associates. I am absolutely honored to be the moderator and share space with the brilliant minds of today's session. So thank you to the National Disability Institute team for having me and planning such a wonderful 2-day event. So in today's session, we're going to hear from individual teams about the impact they've created, along with the strategy, guidance, and their advice. So let's get into it. I am honored to introduce Team Delaware. So please meet Elisha Jenkins, the Director of Delaware Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, and Stacey Bragg, the Deputy Director of Delaware's Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. Hello, Elisha and Stacey.
Thank you, Ciara, and hello, everyone. So thank you for allowing us the opportunity to share a general overview of vocational rehabilitation and the services we provide through our program in Delaware. So my name is Elisha Jenkins, and I'm the Director of the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation there in Delaware. Stacey?
Hi. Thanks for having us here today. I'm Stacey Bragg, the Deputy Director of the Delaware Division of Vocational Rehabilitation.
Thank you. So vocational rehabilitation is a national program available in every state and U.S. territory. So while VR is an eligibility-based program, it's designed to assist people with disabilities to achieve their career goals. So the primary goal of VR is to empower individuals with disabilities to achieve high quality employment that aligns with their strengths, resources, and informed choice. So this is achieved by providing individualized services that help to secure, prepare, retain, regain, and advance in employment. So services may include, but not limited to, counseling and guidance, assessments, assistance with post-secondary education or training programs, on-the-job supports, accommodations, assistive technology, and the list goes on. So you may wonder what the length of time for services are. And again, it's individualized. So that could vary from individual to individual, but it's based on the participants' employment and career goals and the supports that's necessary to help them be successful. So the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, as amended, cites self-employment, telecommuting, and establishing small businesses as appropriate employment outcomes. So services can be provided in many areas: technical assistance, consultation, to help with business plans, and resources such as funding and training, connecting with mentors, as well as marketing and management in specialized topics. So self-employment outcomes for vocational rehabilitation unfortunately only comprise a small percentage of case closures. So nationally, in program year 2023, VR agencies closed 4,803 cases in self-employment, which is 2.16% nationally. So the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, though signed into law in 2014, did provide this as a national priority for individuals with disabilities to build on economic self-sufficiency and continue to build on the ADA and other policies that encourage cross-agency collaboration, enhancing resources, including self-employment.
Okay, so self-employment is a pathway to pursue personal passion and fulfillment. These are often employment situations where individuals feel autonomous. Delaware is a small state serving just over 4,000 individuals with disabilities last year. Just over 500 individuals achieved successful, competitive, integrated employment. And 3 of those achieved self-employment in our program year. Delaware DVR currently has 15 individuals currently either working towards owning their own small business or reaching the level of stability in growing their own business. Some types of self-employment businesses VR has supported includes bakeries, consulting, authors, working in the food service industry, farming. So here we have some Delaware highlights of pictures. And then I'm gonna go into that in just a minute, but at times we have had some situations where people have tried the small business path that maybe did not become fully established, but we at VR were able to assist them with obtaining employment that met and satisfied that career goal. So when we look at the slide, I will introduce here the top left picture. You will see one participant utilizing her services to become self-employed as an author. Here she's pictured attending an event where she is a panelist, sharing information about her book and answering questions. Staying on the left side, the bottom left, you see the participant utilizing her self-employment services as an author. She is pictured attending a different event where she provided an attendee a signed copy of her book. The top middle picture is several DVR participants graduating from the food bank in the Delaware's Culinary School, Logic and Forklift program with warehouse training. Some of these individuals in this picture were on a path to self-employment. So we are showing some of the training that we can assist with to get them to that end goal, working in culinary or pastry. The bottom middle picture, we have some of our DVR pre-employment transition students. That's the students that we are working with who are our youth in high school at different ages, starting at age 16. So they are participating in a pre-employment transition summer training program that is giving them some exposure to the culinary field. And this program assisted students to learn the basics of kitchen prep and provided an overview of the career scope and priorities in the type of work to help them make that informed decision in determining their goal. The top right is a DVR participant who hosted an event, ABZ's Birthday Bash Encore, where this individual was a part of where several artists performed. The individual showcased his music production and DJ skills as a part of his self-employment as a DJ. He was referred to the agency in 2019 as a student seeking assistance with obtaining employment and pursuing his self-employment goal. The bottom right, you see a picture of a tractor. This participant utilizes a truck lift to move between his farming equipment, the tractor, and his truck. Before coming to DVR, this individual was using a Hoyer lift that he and another farmer had rigged up to help him move from tractor to truck. He is employed as an independent contractor and actually works for several Sussex County farmers. Farming is a large industry in our state, and this assistive device has allowed him to continue to work in a career he is passionate about and what he has known. It's also increased his ability to do more by assisting other farmers in the community. Another piece of this individual's self-employment was building birdhouses and selling them at a few local locations, and having the truck lift has allowed him to be more independent and move more easily to distribute the birdhouses that he has built to sell. Okay, next slide.
Great. Thank you, Stacey. So our self-employment program in Delaware has been enhanced over the last year. We had the opportunity to receive technical assistance from our colleagues at the National Disability Institute to revise our process and policies and how we approach self-employment. We also have used that opportunity to enhance our collaboration with community resources, such as the Division of Small Business, the Small Business Development Center, Chambers of Commerce, mentors, and all of these provide support to our participants with the feasibility and planning of the self-employment process. So for example, we share the resources of the Small Business Development Center on the consultation and assistance with strategic planning, projections, lines of credit, mini grants, and things of that nature. So this is a slide that we definitely want to give credit to Jamie Blondin and some other colleagues at NDI for assisting with mapping out this flow chart that makes it so much more easy for us to kind of understand the process as well. So this flow chart is useful again to counselors and participants in a visual on how to understand the process, which definitely seems overwhelming at first. So step one is the self-employment exploration. So where our counselors and the participant explore just what it means to have their own business. Step two is understanding the business concept and feasibility, where the participant examines their business idea and whether they can make a profit to be successful. Step three, the business plan and financial projections area. So this is where a counselor works with the participant to get their business plan written that has a clear outline of how the business will run, and then again, any projections to move forward. The next is the approval process, where the participant and the counselor work together to gather the necessary documents such as licensing, insurance, financial support, and those types of resources. And then step five is the business launch. So the final stage where the participant starts their business and puts all of their plans into action to begin business. So our VR counselors provide ongoing support to the participants throughout the launch of the business and following them along, providing assistance as needed. Again, connecting them with mentors, any other exposures in the field through that, again, with NDI and other community resources that we have. We also, again, benefit from a community of practice, which is a monthly self-employment opportunity that our team participates in, is able to ask questions and get some very intensive technical assistance support, which has been very helpful. And I think it's our last slide. Great. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share how Delaware DVR is supporting participants with self-employment and maximizing their potential. Thank you.
Okay, Elisha and Stacey, that was amazing. Thank you so much. Again, we will have plenty of time for conversation and questions at the end of today's session. So I hold the same honor to introduce Hib Doe, the Field Services Manager of HireAbility Vermont, and Jamie Blondin, the founder of Hive Consulting. Hello, Jamie and Hib.
Hey, Ciara.
The space is yours, my friends.
Great. Thanks so much, Ciara. Really appreciate it. Again, my name is Hib Doe, and I'm with HireAbility Vermont. I'm a field service manager there. And for both those folks who might not know, HireAbility is the Vermont Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. And so we're happy to be here to kind of talk about some program redesign that we did there in Vermont. And why don't you go ahead, Jamie, and introduce yourself.
Sure. So hi, everyone. So glad to be here today. I'm Jamie Blondin, founder of Hive Consulting, but I was a former program manager and counselor in Vermont for their voc rehab stuff. And now I do stuff on my own, helping all different voc rehab agencies, and was a business owner myself and still am. So really, really happy to be here today.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. And Jamie was just instrumental in kind of making this all possible here in Vermont. And so you heard a little bit about Delaware and kind of the broad scope for folk rehab programs across the country. What Jamie and I are going to talk a little bit about is within Vermont, within our folk rehab program, how we've kind of revamped the program to kind of be able to provide maybe increased assistance to individuals with disabilities, and also training to our counseling staff so they're more aware of self-employment and how to help our participants be more successful. And so Vermont, as you might know, is a real small rural state in the Northeast, and but it's a very entrepreneurial state. And we have a high number of participants who are interested in self-employment, who have come into our door. And over the years, we've been wanting to revamp our policy and kind of expand how we work with that population, and didn't really get to that over the years. We kind of did what we could. And then during the pandemic, there was a higher increase in self-employment. And so on the other side of that, we really said we gotta do something here. And so what we did was we started to kind of recognize the need for these counselors that we had statewide to kind of understand what type of training they might need to kind of grow in their appreciation for self-employment. And in terms of trying to form this program, what we did was we pulled together counselors from around the state, people from outside of HireAbility who are interested in self-employment, our client assistance program representatives, and people from our state rehab council. And we really kind of formed this kind of strategic planning group to kind of think about how we might do this. And then real importantly, we were able to pull in Griffin-Hammis, who had been working with the Rehab Services Administration with all the folk rehab programs nationwide who are interested in getting technical assistance. And they were just instrumental also in helping us to kind of help this to get launched. And next slide. Go ahead, Jamie, you could take this one.
Sure. So we recognized that there were several different areas that we needed to put some effort into making changes. And so this slide just really describes those major sections where we made improvements. So we developed new processes and tools. We increased funding levels so that there was more financial support for participants. There's 2 pathways to self-employment in Vermont. More counselors, all counselors got more training and continue to have training, and implemented a self-employment review team process for some of those higher cost plans. So in the next few slides, I'll be going through so a little bit more detail of some of those areas. So next slide, please. So staff support really, like Hib said, was a big part of it. We want counselors to recognize self-employment as a viable option for a lot of folks. And before, that wasn't always the case. And I think part of that comes from comfort level. Our counselors, they're really trained in the counseling part and that human services side, but they may not have experience with self-employment or be as comfortable with business. And so that's where we said, we really got to train our staff up. And so part of that was also identifying self-employment specialists in each district across the state, because we had varying levels of resources throughout Vermont. So some areas might have had a lot of resources like Small Business Association, capstone agencies, just different consulting firms, like in the bigger areas, the closer to the cities. But we have so many very rural areas that those didn't have as many. So we felt it was a priority to have internal capacity. So each of the districts had a specialist who other staff could go to and raise questions and be a leader and champion for self-employment in their area. Along with that training, we had revamped our policy. So that goes through a whole process with the state. But alongside that, recognized that we needed some guidance for counselors. How can we go through all the steps of self-employment? So that slide that Elisha had shared, we kind of did a similar thing in Vermont, broke it down into the different steps. And in that guidebook that I developed, it really explains, here's how you can approach it from each of those points. Community practice, also really, really important and still ongoing. I think rubber meets the road when you're putting it all in action and you're seeing cases, and we can learn it and do curriculum and do all of that stuff. But until we're actually talking about real cases and just sharing, that's where the real learning happens. So that's been fun to just keep the conversations going. There's also resources for all steps of the process. So if they're in the exploration phase, they have different worksheets or resources to refer to. If they're in the business planning phase, we have some internal supports, but also those specialists are working really hard to develop community relationships and really build that district capacity. So maybe there's other partnerships within their region that can provide supports. So just developing and identifying and building upon all the resources so that people get what they need and know what to expect. So next slide, please. And support for participants, because we recognize we want to help our staff, but we're here for participants. That's why we do our job. And so we also developed some tools, and Vermont we'll talk in a couple slides about what the future holds, but having tools for our participants, having them know what to expect from the start, it's important. We want that transparency. We want people to be set up for success. And so really dug deep into thinking big about what is possible. And fortunately, Griffin-Hammis has been doing this work for so long, and they had a lot of really great resources. So we're able to adopt some stuff and make it work for our state. And another part with participants is that we recognized that there's so many types of self-employment. So for someone, it could be more of a side gig, whereas other folks, it really truly is their primary income source, and it could be in a really big business, whatever that might look like for them. So we created 2 routes to self-employment, and that kind of just helped give more options for folks. So next slide, please, Ciara. And with those 2 levels of businesses, we also have different funding levels. So as part of the policy change and really digging deep and looking at where we needed to make improvements, we recognized that what we had available before for funding it just wasn't enough. We had $2,500 as the maximum level. And for some businesses, totally fine, appropriate. That's exactly what they need. But other businesses, they might have bigger goals and dreams and needs. And so we wanted to offer more funding. And so now there's both the supplemental business route and the self-sustaining business route. And I won't go too far into the weeds, but just high level, the supplemental business funding is up to $2,500. And those decisions are all made on a local level with the counselor and a district manager. And part of really being clear in our processes is that we're trying to make sure people know along the way how the funding could be used efficiently and effectively too. So this business it could be a side gig. It could be in addition to SSI, SSDI funding. It could be that they're just starting out and they just are trying to scaffold how they roll out and launch their business. Then the other level of business is self-sustaining. So it really means that it's their primary income source. It is what they use as their main financial gain. And this review process is a little bit different, and decisions are made with a self-employment review team. There is a scoring rubric that we developed and a little cohort of rotating executive leadership, regional managers, the self-employment specialists, and community experts if needed. And so it's really an opportunity to provide a feedback loop. So for a lot of folks, if their plan is incomplete, there is opportunity to revise and come back. And so part of that process, we wanted to be really intentional, not close the door on people, just keep it open and give opportunity for review. Of course, we wouldn't be getting to this point of putting it to review if they truly weren't, if it wasn't feasible and it wasn't possible. So again, having those expectations along the way is really important because the steps do build upon themselves. So it's been really wonderful for some of our businesses to have that increased level. And if you could go to the next slide, please, Ciara. So just to say why that was really crucial, we'll talk about 2 success stories. So one of them was the dog grooming business. And, that $10,000 really, really made a difference for this individual. They had some mobility stuff, and being able to provide different ergonomically correct equipment allowed them to more efficiently groom the pets. It made it so that they could increase the number of daily clients that they saw, and they had goals of trying to find a new space and hire staff. And so by having this equipment, they were able to do that and work towards their goal. So just purely in this case, I think all of our steps helped this person, but really the funding was great. And now they're taking off. They're doing wonderful things. They've been recognized on all different levels of the work that they've done. And we hope to see more of that. And Hib has another one to share.
Sure, thanks, Jamie. Yeah, recently we funded a person who started a driving school in the southern part of Vermont. And he utilized our funding for modifications that needed to be made to the driver's ed vehicle, also for classroom materials and other items. And that business has launched and been very successful. His his classes have all been full ever since he started this fall, and it's just been a great success. And we're really interested to hear more about how that kind of rolls out for him. It's a huge need in our state for driver's ed, for especially for young folks coming out of school. So next slide. So our future plans kind of going forward, we're going to continue to try to make sure that we have staff in every office in our state that, as Jamie mentioned, are specialists around self-employment. It's not that they exclusively do self-employment, but they have a higher level of training that a lot of it Griffin-Hammis had set up, and we actually have that on a learning management system that they log into and take on their own, which is very good. And part of this has been a promotional opportunity for them too. If they're interested in being a specialist, we've also promoted them in their role, so they earn a little bit more money doing that. So that training is ongoing. We're wanting to develop real clear guidance for our participants, including a guidebook and fillable documents that they can do. We just want to set the expectation up front for them that they know what our process is, and kind of help and write that in a way that's going to be really understandable for them and work out well. And then finally, continue to kind of deepen our community connections locally with our specialists, so that we can, grow our capacity, look into other funding sources that might be available. A couple that we funded recently that weren't part of our success stories here actually did receive outside funding that was equal to ours, or maybe even a little bit more, which was really exciting, and that hadn't really happened before. So yeah, we're really looking forward to more of that as we kind of go forward. And the other thing, earlier we heard about nationally that self-employment for HireAbility or for voc rehab participants nationally is around 2% or a little bit more than 2%. In Vermont, we're about at 4%, which we feel good about, but we'd love to see in Vermont about 14% of folks actually are engaged in self-employment. And one of our goals is to try to get self-employment for our participants. How can we increase that number and kind of watch that, so that we might even do a better job to try to equalize our participants with what the statewide numbers are. Next slide. Great. So this is, Jamie and I's contact info, and just grateful to kind of be with you guys today and talk about what we're doing here in Vermont. And
Yeah, thanks for having us, everyone.
So thank you so much, Hiv and Jamie. These slides will be available for all audience members, and I definitely encourage reaching out to the speakers from both days of the conference to continue growing these connections. So let's go ahead and meet our next speaker, Brent Anderson. I am honored to introduce Brent. Brent is an author, inspirational speaker, and entrepreneur. Hello, Brent. I'll kick it over to you.
Thank you, Ciara. So yes, I am. My name is Brent Anderson. Like she said, I am an entrepreneur, an inspirational speaker, and an author. I have two businesses. My first business is called Unintentional Humor, where I've written a series of books about how I have autism, so I explain how people with autism take different forms of language, like idioms, nouns, verbs, homophones, literally, in the form of cartoons and short stories. And then I also have a second business called Pets Pizzazz, where I create pet products like snuffle mats for pets. So yeah, I have two businesses. Next slide.
And I'm his sister, just here as support.
So, as I said, I have autism, and there are other kinds of intellectual and developmental disabilities, or IDD, like Down syndrome. There are 16 million Americans who have IDD, and so it's a pretty large population, about 5% of our population. But I'm here to tell you guys about like some entrepreneurs who have IDD. who will be like myself, who have our own businesses. Next slide. So here are some of the entrepreneurs that we know. One example is Keegan's Art Corner. He not only is an artist, making portraits, but he also does his art on t-shirts and tote bags. And there's also Doggie's Delight, who makes dog treats. So like my pet's pizzazz business, she works with pets, and so we have something in common with our business. So and there are other kinds of businesses like those that make kettle corn or teas or even soup mixes. And so they're kind of all over the place when it comes to entrepreneurs with IDD who have their own businesses. So next slide. So unfortunately, for me, I tried to do my own local VR in Colorado, and I did not have a very good experience with it. They were really expecting me to have very high expectations on like my financial and business stuff. And they also made filling it out very complicated. Um, they also gave me staff and people that did not really understand what my requirements were for my business, and some of the staff actually were quite rude in some cases. So my sister has a business, Celebrate EDU, who helps teach people with disability, physical and with IDD and also physical disabilities on how to become entrepreneurs. I will turn that over to her so she can talk about some of the things that maybe VR can work on in the future. Some parts of VR can work on in the future. So
Yeah, just from Brent's experience is what I'll speak about. So Brent went through, like he said, tried to get support for his business through VR and had a really difficult time getting what he needed to really help launch his business. I think there are quite a few accommodations that individuals with IDD would need that often VR does not consider or have. And that obviously differs state by state, but just from our experience, what we've seen and what I've learned through my work at Celebrate EDU, a lot of what Brent needed was some more education around business, and that's what Celebrate EDU provides. So happy to be a great resource for those who are looking just to really learn more about starting their own business and some of the basics that are often skipped over when first starting. I think some, like Brent mentioned, some of the supports he got were not trained to support people with IDD. And so he was struggling to communicate what he needed. And they were, I think, frustrated that he was not capable to do or able to do some of the things they were asking. So some counselor training and some more community support and understanding of what individuals with IDD need to be successful entrepreneurs, which, as Brent showed, is a very viable path for a lot of people. So that's really it.
that's all I got. So thank you for having us. I know compared to the last two, we were pretty quick, but we're just providing things from a different perspective than the two DVRs that presented earlier. So thank you for having us, and I'm sure things will keep going great. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Brent. And last but not least, we have the incredible Lorinda Gonzalez Santana. Lorinda is the owner of Remy's Consulting. Hello, Lorinda. The space is yours.
Hi, Ciara. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for this great conversation. I am two things. So I'm very familiar with VR because I am a person with a disability myself. I have a mobility disability, neurological condition. So I've been in a wheelchair since I was about 6 years old. I did go through vocational rehab, and similar to Brent, I had a lot of significant challenges with their process. I'm in Miami, Florida. Unfortunately, it is a very large and robust state, but they have historically not been anywhere near as open-minded or supportive as I see Delaware and Vermont is. So first and foremost, props to NDI, props to the Delaware and Vermont for doing great work. It would have been wonderful to have you all kind of back in the day. So with my work, with the work that I do currently, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 19 years old. So I've been, I'm 40 now. So, time's going by a little quickly, over 20 years at this point. And I knew very early on that entrepreneurship was going to be what I wanted to do, not because my parents were entrepreneurs, they were educators. I had no business owners in my life, but I just realized that with my condition and with my situation and working, I had, regular jobs when I was in school. I was an direct assistant to the HR director in my university and such. And I realized early on that I was not able to physically keep up with that type of work. And so, 19 years old, I realized that entrepreneurship was my guide. And I was involved with book rehab when really early on, actually, when I was still in high school. And it was a challenge. It was a challenge to get those counselors at that time to understand that this was viable for me. So it's really nice that 20 plus years later, I get to see that VR is stepping up, is starting to acknowledge how beneficial entrepreneurship can be for a person with a disability, because it does give us a level of flexibility that the general typical work does not. And like I said, I've been very successful. I've been, like I said, entrepreneur for many years. I've worked with clients all over the United States. I've worked in about 6 other countries at this point, doing the consulting work that I do. And it's given me a really great professional life, and also given me, more than anything, the opportunity to give back to the disability community and educate and support others on how we can do this. Because I think sometimes it's what happens within VR, and any of you that are maybe reaching out to VR and have not had, such great counselors like we have on the call today, they just don't know, right? And so I think it's a lack of education, a lack of understanding, just in the general population, understanding the difference between the viability between Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 job versus a small business. Some people think one is better than the other. And I think that's not truly accurate. It really is depending on the person, depending on what they want to do. And sometimes I think there's just some challenges within VR, because the counselors that I had, for example, had no idea what a business was either. They had no idea what that life was. So I found myself reaching out to others, other organizations and such, and kind of a lot of self-learning, right? To be able to get it that way. But the great thing about VR is there's so much support that can be available to us. There's so much they can do to really push our goals, our economic goals forward. VR really helped me with quite a bit of things once I finally kind of got them on my side, right? They helped me modify vehicles that I could drive so I can get to client appointments. They paid for me to have personal care assistance at certain periods in my life. They paid for the majority of my master's degree, which is something that I needed as well. And, and kind of like the proof in the pudding, so to speak, is that now, again, 20 years later, I'm still doing very well. So just a little bit of my experience. I hope that anybody that is seeking out VR support, just, educate yourself on what's available, learn the laws and the rules of VR. And then state by state, I just hope that we continue to kind of move forward. I think Delaware and Vermont, you're fantastic examples of what is possible. And for me, it's very exciting to hear that this is happening. I know this also comes from NDI, who is like really pushing this forward. And I just hope to see that this continues, all over the country, that there's more and more support. So just so we can see this as a viable option, because for many people with disabilities, this is the best option for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorinda, and to all of our panelists today. You've all shared such informative and inspiring information. I know we've gotten quite a bit of questions, and I'm excited to get into conversation. Just real quick, this slide has all of our contact information on it. And we all know how important community and networking is. And this is why I encourage all of you to reach out to panelists and speakers from both of these days to continue conversations and grow your own social capitals. I am confident that even more brilliant ideas and growth will come from these connections. So let's go ahead and bring everyone on screen and open the conversation. And then just a quick reminder, these slides will be available to all audience members. So if there's something here that you're like, oh shoot, I missed it, it's okay. They will be available to you soon. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen so we can get everyone on and answer some questions. All right. So thank you so much for sending questions in. That really helps with growing and helping each other navigate through self-employment. And there are a couple of questions that came in around the same topic. So I'm going to bundle this up and ask everyone. And I will direct the question to specific teams to make sure that we go through this efficiently. But one of the questions that is a constant, let me make sure this gets pulled up. So how can Voc rehab agencies better promote services to aspiring entrepreneurs with disabilities who may not know that these supports exist? So Elisha and Stacey, I'm going to kick it over to you first.
Great. So thank you for that question. So as I shared, it has definitely been the non-traditional wage employment that most VR programs have specialized in, if you will, in sharing that is right around 2%. So kudos to Vermont for having a higher average as far as the number of self-employment cases. But I think it's equally important to highlight that, again, the National Disability Institute and some of the other technical assistance centers that are available to VR programs give the support to the program so they become more comfortable with supporting an individual outside of the kind of wage earning roles that they've already have. It has, again, it kind of again been something that more programs are beginning to understand the differences, especially, you know, in unfortunately some of the unprecedented times that we're experiencing right now. So I encourage the individuals to reach out to their local VR program and share their experience around that, or asking more questions to again continue to have the resources available.
All right. Thanks, Team Delaware. Brent, what about you? How do you think VR agencies can better promote services to aspiring entrepreneurs who may not know any of these supports exist?
It's kind of, I hadn't really thought of that kind of question. Well, they need to like start showcasing entrepreneurs, like as a being an entrepreneur as a possible career path, especially for those with IDD, which I think that would be a great way to promote that people can be a success with the right support and time. And showing that people with like IDD really demonstrates that they are capable of doing things. Like a lot of people who don't understand people with IDD don't think that they're not going to be capable of being a success, that they're always going to need to like live at home with their parents and always be supported their whole lives. But the fact is that, including as I demonstrated even in my part, that there are people with IDD who can be successful entrepreneurs. And I think DVR just needs to recognize and try to promote that. So
Excellent. Thank you, Brent. Team Vermont, what about you?
Thanks, Ciara. I would echo kind of what Brent said there. That, you know, HireAbility Vermont, we have a nice website for our state folk rehab program, and we do highlight success stories on there. But we don't have a self-employment success story on there. We kind of, Jamie and I mentioned a couple here today, and there's others, but we would like to kind of do the same thing there, where we would have success stories about self-employment ventures and also kind of talk about our program. And I don't know across the country what other VR programs do in terms of their public facing websites talk about self-employment as an option, but there's probably more to do there. I know we could do a little bit more here in Vermont, but that would be a way.
The other thing that I think about too is in Vermont, we've been working really diligently on making those community connections. And so, truly having conversations with the other players at the table or people who are in the world of whether it's business, like the SCORE mentors and the SBA and the Capstone, and kind of getting them all together, having a conversation, being like, this is what we're doing in our agency. What are you doing? How can we work together to best support people? Because oftentimes, those business folks, they're really good at business, but they don't have the human services side where the Voc Rehab does. And so having those conversations and sharing resources and getting on the same page, I think that's been really important too. So, and then in Vermont, part of the anybody in special education in school, Voc Rehab is part of their IEP, their individualized education plan. That's an offering for them. And again, state to state, that totally varies. But I think just promotion and conversation among the community partners too, and getting out, hey, this is what we do, and this is how we can help folks with self-employment is also important. So my 2 cents.
Thank you, Hib and Jamie. Lorinda, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say I definitely agree with what everybody's saying. I think that one of the first steps is there needs to be a kind of a cultural shift within VR themselves to understand and accept and make it mandatory for counselors to understand and accept that self-employment is valid. So it starts at a fundamental level there, and just clearly with the 2 other states here in comparison to my experience here in Florida, there's drastic differences on how what's being operated, like how operation is happening within the door. So I think that's number one. I think number two, once there becomes some kind of a shift to understand at the counselor level, counselor level, the managers, etc., that this is valid, then what you do is all the communication there with your clients, whether that's in high school, because like I received training about VR when I was in high school, my senior year of high school, from that level, or originally community college, wherever your first touch points are with the clients, that's when it should be communicated that it's an option, and it should be communicated as an equal option to regular employment. There was this idea, and just like people that I know that are currently going through VR, and again based in Florida, that that's like an extra option. If you happen to know about it, you're lucky. That needs to change. All that narrative needs to drastically change, and both options need to be presented as equally important and equally valid. And then from there together, the idea would be that then a person receiving counseling through VR could then choose and work together with their counselor in a collaborative effort towards deciding whether or not this is a good option. And maybe from the get, it just isn't, but maybe it is. So I think that's where that can kind of start, those initial contact points. I think would be great. And again, success stories are amazing. And just, starting that communication from there, I think would be wonderful.
All right. Thank you so much, panelists, for providing your perspectives and experience around that question. So this next one is for Team Vermont. Hib and Jamie, does the Vermont team ever have clients who move from supplemental self-employment to full-time?
Yes. Yeah, that's a pathway people could take. So if they can show, that their business is going to be self-sustaining, we definitely can kind of move from that first stage to the higher level stage.
And for some folks and a lot of businesses, myself included, sometimes you just need to start small, and you need to have many successes in the beginning to really build your own capacity and see, okay, this is working really great for me, this is not so great for me, and make pivots as needed. And so part of having those 2 paths to self-employment is recognizing that that is very possible. They may be moving from one position to another, and oftentimes business does take a long time. And I think that's something to also recognize, that the self-employment process in general, it does take longer time than getting people into competitive integrated employment. It is, there's more to learn, there's more to connect people with, and that's all time. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I would just add, I think, thanks, Jamie. That was, great. It's no different when wage employment too. If you got somebody, maybe they start out part-time and that's working great for them, but they're interested in more full-time employment, or, beyond that, or education in different ways. So, in HireAbility and folk rehab, we want to support people across that continuum. And I don't see self-employment any different than that.
All right, thank you so much. This question is for Lorinda. What was the most valuable resource or piece of advice you received from your voc rehab counselor?
Oh, that's a good question because I had some interesting experiences with the voc rehab counselors. So I would say what I really liked about the voc rehab counselors was that they did have connections with other organizations and entities in my community. And so, for example, when I moved to Miami specifically, which is in the southern part of Florida, that's where my business boomed. And so they were able to make connections for me. Also really be in contact with the engineers because and I'm not sure if it works the same way in all the states, but they send out an engineer to help me with the technology side of things. To look at my home office, because for me, working out of the home office was better. There was a time where I was able to work in a physical office, but having needs like, I have to use the restroom and I need an assistant and all, it complicated things. So they were able to really look at my workspace and say, okay, what's a better option? And then together we were able to decide that for me, the home office was a better option. And so I was able to have like the vehicle modifications was essential so I could go to clients, right? Because there are certain clients where, especially pre-COVID, I had to work with them in person, but my main area of work was at home. So they, the engineer was fantastic. And then we talked about at the time, Dragon, some voice activation software to be able to write for me because a lot of my work is in the writing space. The computer system. So for me at Apple, which is a little bit pricier, so like sometimes it's hard to get that covered, but they understood that ecosystem is what works better for me. And again, 20 years later, I'm still using the same materials, even having a desk that was made by a company in California at the time that just was a better option for me ergonomically, for me to be able to have that independence and then, to be able to do that. And again, using all the years of experience later by, my counselors being able to understand the mobility needs and really talking with me through it because I didn't have the answers either. I just knew this is the work I wanted to do. I didn't know what workspace was going to work better for me. And kind of like Jamie mentioned, there's a space of flexibility and growth that happens as an entrepreneur. And so they really helped me in that space. And so, even today I have a workspace that is really, it's been upgraded since my times with VR, but it's very much based on what the counselors were able to recommend and the engineers and as a team we're able to develop. And like I said, I do, very well. I've had, actually I've had 3 companies at this point doing similar work. My entire adult life I've been an entrepreneur. So in that aspect, they were very, very, very helpful for me.
Thank you so much, Lorinda. Brent, you spoke a little bit about this earlier, but someone had asked, looking back at your voc rehab experience, what is one thing that the counselor should be aware of when working with clients seeking self-employment that just don't fit the mold of someone without a disability?
Well, what I think is that people need more, the VR needs to know that they need more time, that people with IDD need more time and support to complete what is needed. And the materials sometimes can be very difficult for people with VR to understand for people with IDD. That's like from my personal experience. And I I just think that people at VRs need to understand that people with IDD need more time and support, and they need to be a little more simple sometimes when it comes to what you require. So
I think it'd be great if we had what you have in Vermont, the supplemental. I think that the expectation for Brent going through VR was that he was going to have a self-sustaining full-time business, and that was hard for him. So I think hearing what you're doing in Vermont would be a huge benefit to a lot of entrepreneurs with IDD who are maybe a little slower to get started. Like Jamie was saying, things take longer. And then for Brent to be able to have more time to grow his business and potentially even transition to self-sustaining instead of the expectation being set at that level. That is almost impossible for Brent, given what he needs and the amount of time things take for Brent to get there as soon as VR would want him to. The other thing is I would love for VR counselors to shift their mentality that self-employment is a last option and that they should be and that sometimes it is the best fit for people, especially people with IDD. In Brent's experience, self-employment is the best option for him. And so instead of saying, oh, you should go try competitive integrative employment, and then we last resort will pursue self-employment, I think shifting the perspective to make it a more acceptable first step for people who want to pursue that path would be a huge shift that would be better support a lot of entrepreneurs. And self-employment is competitive integrative employment. It's included in the definition. I don't think people know that, but that's a fun thing. So I think that's is that everything you want to share?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We love supportive teams and family. Thank you for being here. So this is for Elisha and Stacey. How does the Delaware team handle supporting so many different fields and types of self-employment? I think this goes hand in hand with the that slide you had that was really great with the author, the baker, and then the DJ. So such a variety. But yeah, how does the Delaware team handle supporting so many different fields and types of self-employment?
Great question. I'll take that, Elisha, if you're okay. Delaware, we're looking, of course, with VR at our individuals pursuing their interest, their goals. So it's going to look different for every person. And when it comes to self-employment, we rely on resources and maybe experts in the field. For example, partnering with the SBDC, SCORE, the YWCA, the individual that was interested in maintaining and enhancing their ability with the farming, we partnered with HireAbility. So utilizing those additional resources outside of what, our information, but also leaning on others within the agency that may have more experience in different types of career fields. So it's a team approach. And again, if we don't know the resources, we seek them out. Elisha, did you want to add anything?
No, only the technical assistance centers that VR programs can avail themselves. And again, like National Disability Institute is being able to just acknowledge, right, that we needed assistance to enhance what the program has. And we also have community vendors who also support the counselor and the individual throughout this process. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Our next question comes from Taylor, and just to summarize this a little bit, what advice for our VR teams on the panel do you have for someone who wants to approach voc rehab assistance again, as they previously had a tough experience and would like some help with funding for a newly started business? And let's go with Hib and Jamie first.
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage anybody to come back. I think state to state, we're a little bit different, huh, Elisha? And it's kind of hard to speak nationally for what would be the best approach. But I mean, we're here for folks with a disability to pursue anything that they're chosen that they want to do, that whether they want to do wage work or whether they want to do self-employment. Really, it's a consumer choice model. So we want to allow them to do that. But yeah, try and I guess if you're struggling at the lower level, there's the client assistance program that can help with advocacy, and you can always kind of take it up the chain of command within those organizations and appeal if you're having issues with that. But I hope that you'll get what you need, because we want to support self-employment. And Elisha, I don't know if you've got something to add there as well.
Yes, thank you. So I again, don't want to keep saying the same thing, but just feeling encouraged, right? That most VR programs are acknowledging, like we did in Delaware, that is something that we need to work on. So just again, I recommend reaching out to them again and sharing that and collaborating with these are what my needs are, and these are some resources, that will definitely be beneficial around that. Because I'm not going to tell you we didn't have test cases where we were learning together around it, but I just feel that as again, we look at what VR means nationally. We have a platform with the Council of State Administrators of Vocational Rehabilitation on 100 Stories, talking about promoting. So I know we had some conversations about how do you market the program and things of that nature. I'm just really encouraged that this is an area that we kind of see at all of the conferences and topics, and as Hib shared in our learning management systems, that this is an area that's been identified as an opportunity.
I would just add, if I can, if you're interested, ask a lot of questions like that. Ask questions, ask what your expectations are, what resources are available, what supports out there, how they do the process. Because people, if they don't know the answer, most of the time they're willing to go try to figure it out too. So, and you don't know what you don't know, even as a counselor, there's stuff that I haven't known in the past too. So I think just being really like, hey, this is something I'm interested in. What do you have to offer? This didn't work out for me in the past, but I'm really wanting to try it again. And just keeping communication open on your side too, will just make that process easier. So yeah.
All right, thank you so much. So this next question reads, what is one tip the two self-employed speakers would give to someone with a disability who wants to start their own small business? So Lorinda and Brent, this is for you. And Jenny, I'm just going to add to this question as a family member and advocate, your perspective as well. But Lorinda, would you mind going first?
Sure. So I would say one tip is do a little bit of market research, right? What are your talents? What do you really enjoy doing? What are you really great at? A lot of us with disabilities, we're really great at certain things and we have this competitive edge in a lot of spaces just because of the part of adapting to a disability. So like for me, I'm extremely analytical. You get me in a computer and I can fly, right? If I was to be a waitress, I wouldn't make it a day, right? But you get me in front of the right things and I can do a lot. So we all tend to have those kind of innate talents. So learn that about yourself and then compare it to the market. What is it that you want to do? What already exists? Because market, understanding, let's say you want to be a barista, you want to open a coffee shop. Fantastic. But what other coffee shops are out there? What makes you different than the other one? And go into the conversation very well educated on your market, on the market. Like going in and talking even to your VR counselors, hey, listen, I did my market research. This is what I found, right? This is what I want to do. These are the skills that I need to do it. And this is the viability of my business. And you may get into more details of that when you do your business plan and all that. But I think that's a really good first start because I also do a lot of mentorship with SCORE and things like that with business owners as well. And sometimes I think we have ideas, which are great, but an idea and the reality of a business is a little bit different. So it's just set yourself up for success, educate yourself as much as you can, and go in with confidence and be able to share that. And you're going to really, I think, in a lot of opportunities, enlighten and really just excite your counselor as well. Like, oh, wow, they really thought this through. And that just creates a more of a positive moving space. And it also will give you an opportunity to decide maybe the business, your idea is not a great idea. It's good to know that in the beginning, and then maybe you can kind of shift. But that's where I would start.
Excellent. Thank you, Lorinda. And I think researching is such a consistent practice that you'll do as an entrepreneur as markets shift or you add products or services. So excellent tip. Brent and Jenny, what about you two?
Oh, I was going to have a very similar answer to Lorinda about finding something that you're passionate about and seeing if you can find a way to make it into a career, because I've said this many times that if you're passionate about what you're doing, it doesn't really feel like you're working, you're just doing what you love to do. So, but Lorinda basically had basically all that kind of stuff already stated, so it's kind of hard to come up with another answer like that.
That's good. I think for me, I think Lauren has also mentioned this, starting small, taking small steps. I think people have big ideas and they want to go big, and that often can set them up for long-term failure if they try to do too much too quickly. And taking the time like to figure out who are you selling your product or service to. A lot of people just say, I just need marketing and I will be golden. That's all I need for my business. And the real question is, who are you marketing to? Who is the customer for your business? And if you don't have that answered, you won't actually be able to start your business, find success. So I think taking that time to really do the hard work up front, like Lorinda was saying, is really important. And I also think crucial for a lot of entrepreneurs, and especially Brent, is finding support to support your business. So no entrepreneur in the whole world does it by themselves. So that is with or without a disability. So knowing what you need help with, knowing your own strengths, and then finding those who can fill in the areas that you need more support, whether that's family, if you're lucky enough to have family like that, or, if you have a great VR, that's also a support, mentors in the community, things like that, I think can make a huge difference in the long-term success for entrepreneurs.
Thank you. So let's continue the conversation around research and supports. A question came in from Paola about, can you please share some more criteria or information that Voc Rehab wants to see, right, to determine business feasibility, and what entrepreneurs can begin to track to really help provide any appropriate information. And I'll kick this over to Elisha and Jamie.
Great. So thank you for that. So the information Jamie already shared was around some of the market research or what supports are needed. Is it an additional business program? Is it some additional training on marketing, or some of those resources that would be needed? But understanding again what that market looks like, what skill set you had, or what needs or that VR can support you with, and then again just kind of mapping out what that timeline could look like.
I would say that a lot of folks come in at different points within the self-employment process too. Some people come in, they know exactly what they want to do. They've done a lot of that research. Maybe they've owned a business in the past, so they're drawing upon their lived experiences, their successes. So they're in a position where they know self-employment is where they want to go. Other folks come in the door and that conversation may come up because they did a lot of work. The counselor did a lot of work in exploring options with them, getting to know who they are, what their abilities, talents, training, skills, passions are, and self-employment came out of that conversation. So through those processes, there's different tools that can be used. And I think for me, honestly, the rubber meets the road in the feasibility part. We can have a lot of great business concepts and ideas, but seeing what it would look like money-wise and spending time on that piece. And again, Vermont has the two different routes to self-employment, but really understanding so people are set up for success, because if they don't spend time in understanding what is my value proposition, why do I stand out from the rest, or who am I marketing to, who are my competitors, what is a cash flow worksheet, what's a profit and loss statement, how do I do my taxes, do I need a bookkeeper, those sorts of things. So people come in from all different places and they have all different needs. And so I know in Vermont, and I'm working nationally across several different agencies in government to help them develop their programs. So we're seeing a lot of cultural shifts on that national level, but really having tools for each step of the way is important. But I think the business feasibility part, as far as funding and stuff goes, it's just making sure that people are positioned so they know what to expect when their business launches. And so they're not in the hole necessarily in a bad way before they get going. So yeah, there's a lot. I'm always happy to talk about this stuff outside of this meeting. So please reach out.
Thank you, Elisha and Jamie. And to everyone here, time moves fast when you're having fun. And so we are almost out of time, my friends. So Elisha, Hib, Lorinda, Brent, Jenny, Jamie, and Stacey, thank you so much for sharing space, your guidance, your advice, and just inspiring everyone here. I know there are questions, like quite a bit of questions we didn't get to. So I encourage all of you to go to the contact pages of every single one of these sessions from both of these days and ask your questions. The questions you submitted are wonderful, and I'm sorry if we weren't able to get to them, but I guarantee you, if you reach out to these speakers, you will be able to continue the conversation. So let's just give a quick second shout out to the speakers today, as well as our ASL interpreters and our captioners. And thank you so much for being here. I'm going to kick it back to Nikki with NDI.
Thank you so much, Ciara, and thank you to our wonderful panelists. We've got a lot of great things in the chat. Again, just encourage you to reach out. You can also reach out to us with your questions. Happy to answer them as we can. All right, so don't forget, a brief survey about this session that you're going to find on the live events page. We're about to take a 10-minute break so ASL folks can get into the next session. We can get everything set up. And just as a reminder, you won't be able to get into the session of your choice until 2 minutes before the session starts. So take that time to go to those exhibit booths and check everything out. And with that, we are going to close and we'll see you in the next session.